And for more, let's bring in member of the House Oversight Committee, Republican Congressman from Texas, Pete Sessions. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us on this Monday afternoon. It's hard to believe that anyone would say, you know what, let's not help people because they have a different viewpoint than I do. But it sounds like that's exactly what's happening with this FEMA employee. What are you learning and what are the next steps?
In fact, we are learning this. And the reason why it has come to our attention and we're making such a big deal about it, including a federal investigation, is because federal and government employees, as well as regular citizens, need to know that the United States government will not employ people who utilize these tactics of politicalization or tactics that are unfair to people who, through expressing themselves, find themselves without services. So the committee will handle this. The subcommittee quite likely will be handling this issue. But I'm very thankful that FEMA, not just the administrator, stood up and said this will not be tolerated. They have terminated the employee. They've referred it to special counsel. They have referred it to within the agency and are handling this properly. This is the kind of service, this is the kind of action that we would want, and it would be reprehensible for people who were in need to find out that someone from the federal government would show up and not help them because they expressed who they were for politically. So we're going to be able to handle this, but the reason why it's important that Newsmax and others say this is because it's the wrong thing to do.
Congressman, do you believe this is an isolated incident or maybe an isolated mindset, so to speak, with the employees of the federal government?
Well, I don't know whether it's a misconception or what it is, but I believe that at this time that we look at the Department of Justice, we look at the President of the United States who called people who supported Donald Trump names, called them us, garbage, trash. I think that these kinds of things emanate from the leadership of the White House, and I call on the president to stop doing these things. I call upon people who are of elected position. The battle is now over, and for us to continue a dialogue where we take advantage of each other and call each other names is not in this best spirit of not only healing this country, but moving forward. So I applaud the FEMA administrator for taking the direct action she did. But I will say the President of the United States is responsible through his actions in some of this. And I think federal government employees have taken that as, well, it's okay if I do that, and it's not.
No, it definitely is not. And Congressman, we appreciate that you calling it Newsmax for bringing light to this story. But meanwhile, the New York Times itself has yet to issue a correction on this story after, quote unquote, fact checking President-elect Trump's Truth Social post on this exact story. Quote, I'll be there shortly, but don't like the reports that I'm getting about the federal government and the Democrat governor of the state going out of their way to not help people in Republican areas. The Times says Mr. Trump, of course, in a post on Truth Social Monday, and the Times response to that post. This lacks evidence. While some have criticized the federal response and emergency responders faced obstacles in reaching some areas, there is no evidence that the Biden administration was purposefully ignoring the needs of Republican areas. However, this is the directive from FEMA, full stop. Best practices, avoid houses advertising Trump. Once again, it is disappointing seeing, legacy media refusing to share what the truth is and hiding behind bias. Do you think this is something we will see stop, as you pointed out, as we head towards what has to be healing in this country?
Well, you could go back to 1903 when the Wright brothers were preparing to fly at Kitty Hawk, and the New York Times stated publicly it would be 10,000, 1 million more years before man would fly. The New York Times has been well off ever since at least 1903. Moving forward, they're off again today. It's ready, fire, aim. They are such a leftist organization that they fail to transmit or include the truth. They print all the news, but most of it is not fit because they do not actually subscribe to the truth. So not a surprise that the New York Times has not said, whoops, we made a mistake. We will remember this as we do. They earn their own reputation.
That's right, and I appreciate the history lesson since 1903. All right, Congressman Pete Sessions, thanks so much.
Thank you.